Hey there, this video will help you master creating tables. So I think tables are a little confusing, especially in Google Docs. Maybe not confusing unless you're used to using them in Word. So for me, it was difficult kind of switching from Word to Google Docs, specifically with tables, because a lot of the features that I wanted to be where they were, they're not there at all in some cases, and then sometimes they're just in either worded differently. Anyway, so I thought if since I struggled with it, maybe others were struggling with it too. And I wanted to make tables kind of easier for you to use because I do think they're handy and, really good to use when you're using Google Docs for many different things. So I've got a little bulleted list here to kind of keep me on track, and I may delete them as I go through so that I know what I've talked about. So first of all, so here we are in a Google Doc, and just to create them, you're going to go to Insert and then choose Table, and then you just choose how many rows and how many columns you want, or columns and rows actually. Now, you can start with any number or you can count it out specifically, but it's really easy to insert and delete later on. So I'm going to show you that next. So I'm just going to start with I don't know, 4 by 4 is fine. Well, notice that it put it exactly where I was. I don't want it right there. I meant to put it down here, but this is a good little lesson for us. So I inserted it in the wrong place accidentally. So I'm going to highlight all of it, right? So I just clicked in one of the cells and highlighted all the table. I'm going to hit Control X to cut it because I don't want it there anymore. So Control X cuts it, right? I'm going to give myself a little bit of space down here. Here's my cursor now. I'm going to hit Control V to paste it. And now there it is. I also got some bullets that I don't want. Okay, so that's how you create it. And if you create it in the wrong place like I did, that's how you move it as well. I didn't even have that one on there. So anyway, that is how you create a table. So inserting columns and rows. So like I said, I don't know, sometimes I do count exactly how many I need, but then I always tend to need more or less. So to insert columns and rows, there are several different ways, just like kind of all things with Google. There are many different ways to do the same thing. You just got to pick your favorite or pick the one that works best for you at the time. Okay, so I'm going to show you one way is to just right click on the table. You get all these super great options, and you can insert row above, row below, column left, or column right. Okay, so it does just what it is. So here I am in this column here. If I do insert column left, it puts a new column to the left. If I right click and insert row below, it inserts a row below, and now I quickly have a 5 by 5. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Let me see. You can also go to Format and Table. You get a few of the options that we just saw. Okay, there. Another way, and this is it's become one of my favorite ways. So, and I've got tab here in parentheses, so I would make sure to remember to tell you this. So if you've got, you're typing away and you think, oh no, I need one more row here, and you don't want to go through the right clicking. If your cursor is in this last cell, all you have to do is hit the tab key. So I'm going to hit tab, and it creates another identical row below it. So that one is super handy, and I use it a lot. And in fact, if I just need one more row below, I usually just go to the last cell and hit tab. Just for me, that one is easy. So that's how you insert columns and rows. It also inserts them kind of the same size as below, or if you're out of space, it's going to make them all smaller by the same amount. So deleting columns and rows works pretty much the same way. So you can do the right click method, and you can see delete row, delete column. And I'm going to go ahead and just delete this column here. So the column goes up and down, so it's going to delete this whole column, right? If I'm here and I right click and I delete row, it's going to delete that whole row. Now, if I have two selected like this and I right click, and now it's going to say delete 2 columns, right? Instead, so just kind of let you know you can do more than one at once. Okay, so that's how you delete. You can also, I'm pretty sure on Format Table that was there as well. Yeah, delete column, row, or the entire table if you want it gone. Okay, So that is how you delete columns and rows. Now, as far as resizing your cells, so each individual square here where you would put text is a cell. These are the dividers between the columns, and you can just resize by dragging, right? When you hover over and you see your cursor change to kind of those parallel lines with the arrows out to the side, you can drag and resize really easily like that. So if you need a really small one, maybe here for the date or something, and then a big one here and a smaller one, maybe you need one more row. I'm going to insert column to the right, and now you've got another one here. You can do all sorts of things, but this is just a really easy way to resize these for you. Okay. So I often like to put a title on my tables. So I'm going to want this first row to be all one row. So I'm going to highlight all of it, and I'm going to right click and choose merge cells. So that's one of my favorite tools. It gives you a nice little title row. So here I would center it, and I would name it whatever I wanted. Whoops, I took the center off. I backspaced too many times. Mastering tables. And then I usually would make this font a little bigger. And when I make the font bigger, notice that this cell also gets bigger to accommodate that. So as I hit the plus sign, notice that cell is getting bigger to accommodate the font that I chose. Then you have all kinds of, your regular options. So you can change, of course, the text color on your font. So I can make that orange. And then there is, if you click the three dots, there's a bucket here, and that will change the fill color of this cell. Okay, so if I hit the bucket and I make it blue, there, I've got my background changed, a bigger font, and then the table. So that is merging cells and filling cells. Okay. And you can also merge cells up and down. So let's say that you wanted this one to be all in one, because everything here has to do with whatever you're talking about. You can right click and you can merge these cells, and now those cells are all one. So I think that's pretty cool. I think normally you think of maybe merging rows, but you can also merge columns. So in here we might name this, whoops, I was trying to type in there. Is it going? There we go. Formatting, and I can adjust this. Now, one thing that it's a kind of a pet peeve of mine. If I have a cell that is this large and it has this in it, I want this title to be in the center, right? I want it to be in the center of the cell. So you can use alignment to center it, horizontally. That one's pretty easy. You just use this one on your toolbar that you use probably all the time. But what I also want to do is center it vertically within this cell. Okay. So for that, you're going to right click on it, and you're going to go to Table Properties. And then here under Alignment, you want the vertical alignment. Right now it's set to top, which puts it at the top. I'm going to choose Middle. That's going to put it in the middle. If you want bottom, you can choose bottom, but I rarely use that. I always like to have it in the middle. So I just think that looks a lot nicer. Also, you've got, some options in here that you can look around if you want to later. So this is my formatting cell. So here I might, be like fill color, text color. Oh, we'll do border width. We'll go over that in a second. And then maybe like border color. Okay. And that is how you do that. Now, one thing I do miss in Word, you used to be able to split cells, right? So let's say that this next one, I didn't want to mess with my header row, but I wanted this to be two cells instead of one. Or even this one in Word, you used to be able to make that two cells just in this spot right here. You can't do that in Google Docs. I checked on their forum, and it's something that a lot of people say they like and they miss about been able to do in Word. So hopefully at some point it'll be something they add. But right now, let's say under fill color, I wanted this single cell to be 2. You're going to have to kind of do several extra steps. So what I would do is I would insert a column to the right. Okay. And then I would merge these two. So I'm going to right click and merge. And then I'm going to make this smaller and this smaller. And that I actually wanted the opposite, didn't I? Let me undo. Okay. What I want to do is merge all the rest of these. Oh, and once you merge, see I merged this one. This is really cool. Now I can do Control C for copy. And when I come down here and paste, that's not what I wanted to do. Control C and then paste there. It copies that formatting. So I'm going to do paste again. And I actually did not mean to do these 2 rows, so I'm going to delete 2 rows. Okay, and now what I have is that single cell split into 2, and all the rest of these are still 1. So it did take several extra steps to get that. When, like I said, in Word, Usefill will just split cells. But you get the same result, just takes you a few extra steps. So that is splitting cells. And I did put up here that you can't split cells, and that's true. It just takes you a few extra steps to get that look. Okay. So now you could put in 2 different things here, and then you still have your full cells there. Okay. All right. So I think I've done all those. I'm just going to highlight so I can keep up with what I'm doing. All right. So, and copy formatting, that's what I was just doing. So, if I wanted, now let's say I change my mind and I want all these split. I think, well, that's a really good idea. Or maybe I need border width split. So I'm going to highlight that, right? So both of them are highlighted. I'm hitting Control C and I'm going to click down here and Control V. And now this one has the same formatting as that. So I just think that that's really cool. Like we copy and paste text all the time, but you can also copy and paste formatting, which is really helpful sometimes. So there is that. Okay, fill cells I kind of already went over when I did the table, but you can also fill individual cells anywhere in the table that you want to. So let's say under border color, I'm clicking here. Again, I just go to this bucket right here and I choose fill, and it'll fill it with anything, that I choose. The bucket and the fill. You can also choose a transparency on it if you want to. So now border color. So if you notice, the default is this black color, but you can change that to a color. You can change it to no border at all. Now this can be a little tricky. Maybe not tricky, just a little different maybe than what you're used to. So you can select one single border at a time. And so when I click on this one line, if you notice, it kind of highlights it in blue. Now, any formatting that I do is only going to affect that single cell. So I have just 3 options here. You can change the border color, the width, or the dash of it, right? So if I click here and I make it blue and I make it thicker and I can make it a dash, right? So just that single line right there was affected. I'm going to undo because I actually don't want that. Okay, but that's just one single line. I'm going to undo again. There we go. So there is that. Now, what I want you to notice is, and I think I have it, these screen tips down here below. So kind of notice anytime you click in a table, you get a little button, right? So this is click to select the borders. So let's say I'm going to actually come down here so you can see it better. I'm going to click that, and here are my border options to select more than just one single border at a time. So I've only have one cell selected. So if I choose this, it'll select the entire outer border of this single cell. Okay, and now I can go in and change it to blue. Okay, and now this is blue for the entire cell. Okay. So that same concept works for whatever selection you make in the table. All right. So if I select all of these, right, now I have 6 cells selected. I can go over here. If I select outer border, it's only going to be this outer border. But if I select this, which is all borders, see now every single one is selected. You can go through and change the border on all of them at once. So that one is super handy to select all of them, or you can just do one at a time. And then no border. Also, sometimes you might want no border. So if you don't want any borders to show up, you can do that. Let's see, select all. That's going to be all these borders. And for color, you could just choose white, and then all those borders are gone. So I know that sometimes you do want tables to have, no borders. You just want your data organized. So that is definitely an option for you there. Okay, I actually thought of something while I'm doing this, so I'm going to add, do I have it on sort? Okay, sort table. Okay, because I think that's important. So we've done fill cells and we've done border color. So I'm going to highlight those. It's done. Okay, so in sorting the table, sorting the table would mean that if you have a list of maybe student names or a list of whatever, and you want them sorted alphabetically or reverse alphabetically, or if you got some numbers, maybe grades or something like that, and you want those sorted. So a couple things, if you notice, I did pause in practice, so I'm going to remerge this, right? We had formatting merged like that. The thing with sorting is you can't sort a table if you got vertically merged cells. Okay, so we did sort this or merge it, vertically, and you can't sort ascending or descending if you've got a vertical merged cell. So, and I'll show you what happens. So let's say I want to highlight the table by this column, and I sort table in ascending order. It gives me, you can't sort a table with vertically merged cells. Please unmerge and try again. So I'm going to click OK. So I'm going to click here, and I'm just going to unmerge. I right-clicked and unmerged. That puts formatting back up here, which is fine. We can move it back later. Now I'm going to sort the table, and I want you to notice something because that's something I'm going to show you later. I've got the title row here, okay? So pay close attention to that because that's going to be important. So I'm going to go ahead and click in this cell or this column and then sort table in ascending order. Now, see what it did? It put my mastering tables at the bottom. It did put these in alphabetical order, but it moved my header, and I don't want that. So I'm going to undo by doing Control-Z. Okay, now what you can do, and this is similar to if you're used to using Google Sheets or Excel, if you freeze that header row, this is the same concept. So I'm going to right click on my header row, and you see where it says pin header row? So I'm going to pin it, and that means no matter what I do now, it's staying in my header row. It's not going to move anywhere. So now I can be in this column and right click, and I can sort table in ascending order. And now it puts them in alphabetical order for me. And then I can quickly right click and put formatting back to the way that it was. Okay. So sorting table is really easy, but you do have to kind of, if you've got your title already set, just pin it to the header row, which is probably a good idea when you're first creating it anyway. And then if you've got any kind of fun vertical alignment, you'll have to unmerge and then sort and then merge it back. Okay, so that is sorting table. I'm going to check that one off. Okay, so table properties next. And I think I actually went to this a little bit before, but if you right click and go to table properties, you get some options over here on the side. Okay, so you can check your row height. You have some options on column width. I don't normally use these. I just, drag it by size, but if you ever by site, but if you ever needed an exact size, you obviously have that. The one that we came here for was the cell alignment and the table alignment. And this is actually, the whole table is now set to the left. We can center that. and it moves the table to the center. And you've got some options here for border and background color if you want to do that. So that is some things that you can do. Those are some things you can do in table properties. Okay, the next thing is distribute rows and columns. I actually use this one quite a bit. I'm going to add a couple of columns. I think I already did it. Let me undo. Okay. Okay. So now I've inserted some columns, and if you notice, this column is wider than these two. Okay. So if I've inserted several, they kind of get off the size if I want them to match. So I would highlight those, right? I've got all three of these columns highlighted. And if I right click and go to distribute columns, it's going to evenly distribute all of them. So I'm going to click off for a second. So notice here, I'll make it more noticeable. Okay, so this one's really big, this one's small, and this one's kind of medium. Okay, so I'm going to highlight them and right click and go to distribute columns, and it makes them all three identical. Okay, so it works the same way with rows. I'm going to just kind of mess with it a little bit so you can for sure see the difference. Okay, so now that my rows are all different sizes, now if I highlight all the rows like that, and I right click and go to distribute rows, it makes them all the same size. Okay, so that one's really handy if you want your table to be very symmetrical. And I do sometimes, I use those a lot. Okay, now what I would do, because this bugs me, how this is up at the top and you have this white space on the cell, I would then highlight these, I would center them horizontally, I would right click, go to table properties, and I would center them in the middle. Okay, so I would do that formatting just to clean the table up a little bit. And that brings me to alignment, which is what I was going to show you next. So anyway, remember that if you're wanting to do vertical alignment, that's in here in your table properties. Okay, you can also center the whole table here. If you're wanting to do just horizontal, you can do that up on your toolbar, right? You've got these, or right justified, or whatever you want to do. So those options are there. So I have next to kind of pay attention to the screen tips that pop up. So of course we have this one that will select your borders, but if you move around your table here, if you got this, see, that means you can grab it and you can move that row. That kind of bugs me, actually. I don't ever use that one, but you can sort the table and you can insert a column just by these screen tips. And if you're over here, well, I got another one to pop up earlier. But anyway, you get these screen tips to pop up wherever you are. Okay, so just in whatever you click on, just kind of, if there are some screen tips, just pay attention to what they are, and it might be some tools that you need kind of handy there for you. So, if you ever worked in Google Docs a lot and then you're used to working in Word you could put in text boxes. You could go to insert and then text box. Well, if you go to insert in Google Docs, there is not a text box option. And that bugs me sometimes because I like text boxes. I like to have maybe a paragraph of text, but then I want to have something over here set aside. Now, the way that Google says to do this is to go to insert and then drawing, and then create a text box in drawing and then insert it. And you definitely can do that. I think that's a lot of extra steps, and I don't like to do that. So what I have started doing is I use a table as kind of an alternate to a text box in Google Docs. So here, I'll just show you what I'm talking about. So let's say just in between here, I wanted to just put a little text box for something. What I would do is insert a table, and I would just make it a 1-by-1. And that puts me what I call a little text box in there that I can do free typing, right? So this is a text box, isn't it? I can type here. I think it's great for, like, if you're doing worksheets for students, it gives them a nice place to type their response. You can resize it, you can make it bigger so that if you want kind of a paragraph response as opposed to a one word response, this kind of clues them in maybe. Oh, this text box is big. I should probably type a lot to fill it up. So I like using a 1-by-1 table as a text box in Google Docs. So I use it a lot. That's just a little trick that I wanted to share with you. It doesn't have to be, like a full blown out table with columns and rows. I like the 1-by-1 just as a text box. And you can, do your formatting. You can do all kinds of things. And it also, if you have that trouble with, like if kids are doing a fill in a blank, like if you do name and then the blank, right? I've got everything highlighted in yellow. Let me turn that off here. Okay, right. Why didn't I do it? Oh, I've got to turn it off. Okay, so if you've got name and the kids type their name, you know what it does to the line here, right? It scoots it out, and that just bugs me. That's also I have a lot of pet peeves. That's one of them, right? So, because then it messes all your formatting up and you've got this weird name with the line out. So what I like to do, and so if you're doing a worksheet in Google Docs, and I would just insert a 1-by-1 right here, right? And you can make it a little smaller. You can you can move it. So anyway, then I can type my name freely. If you want to, you can remember how you can remove the borders by making them clear. And so now I have just my name there, but the kids could type in it freely, right? If you wanted to, you could insert, let's do a column to the left, and here you could put name. You can make this smaller. It's hard to do it when there's no borders. You can't see what you're doing. But anyway, if you did, let's select, where's that? Let's select this bottom border only, right? And what if we did that with a black line, right? Now you've got the same look that you would have with the blank, but kids can type freely in it. So anyway, when you get really good at tables, that would be nothing for you to create something like that. So I think it's a great alternative to using the Google Drawings, because then if you have to edit it, you have to go into Google Drawings. It's just a pain to me. So I like it as an alternate to a text box. The last thing I just wanted to mention is that Google Slides works the same way, and you can put tables in Google Slides. And all of these same things that I'm showing you here in Google Docs works in Slides as well. The only thing different is in Slides, you can add a text box. So there wouldn't be a need for you to use this little trick that I showed you. But all of the table tools that I went over with you in here, you can definitely use all of those in Google Slides. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you now are mastering tables all the time with your work. If you ever have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help you. Thank you.